All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. If for some reason you can't hear me, please interrupt me and tell me my my headset is doing poorly. There's several individuals who aren't here because of the weather. I think it's very important to point out that all the individuals that aren't here wanted to be here, and we are experiencing, I'm going to say, unprecedented inclement weather. And these individuals, I think, come the summer, due to being stout, should be provided an opportunity to revisit their position during sunnier months. I hope that makes sense. But let's see. Let's get to the secretary and perhaps do our roll call. Does that sound fine?
Yep.
All right. James Chavez, please do the roll call, my friend.
Got it. Okay. So
Right now, Sean.
Brian.
Here.
Okay, present. Rose?
Here.
Present. Paul? Absent currently. And I believe that's because of due to the weather, correct?
Tragically, yes.
Got it. And then Andy?
Present.
Got it. And then me, Jose. Here. And then so I'm gonna say it correctly, hopefully. Ariana? Or
That's Victoria. I'm here.
okay, got it. Oh, Victoria, would that be better for
Yeah.
you if I just put that one instead? Okay.
That's fine. I just have my amp guard name on here.
Oh, okay. Got it. Cindy?
Here.
Got it. Okay, and then Chris.
Present.
All right. And then we do know that the monarch is currently absent due to weather as well.
That is correct.
Okay.
There are other individuals that planned on being here, such as Amanda Giles, who unfortunately has also been affected by weather. She is the regent, and that individual has gone through a lot, which is sick.
Got it. I will say thank you very much. Understood. Is there anyone else other than Amanda Giles, the monarch, and Paul that is currently not here?
I am going to speak for Dagger. He is currently experiencing inclement health at the moment, has difficulty speaking, but he will be dropping information into chat, which I will put on screen. But he does want to say he's here and will be typing responses.
Understood.
Sorry to hear, Dagger.
Can I get Dagger's name so I can put it down?
Dagger, can you drop your name into chat? I'm very sorry.
Please and thank you.
Please and thank you.
Thank you.
Frankie Demento.
That really sounds like a fake name. I'm sorry.
He's a doctor, believe it or not.
I think it sounds fake a little tiny bit because it sounds a lot like a character from Brooklyn Nine-Nine's name.
Yeah, it does.
And that biases us to feeling it sounds fake.
Actually, I hadn't even thought about that. I was going after Dr. Demento.
All right. With the roll call completed, I'm going to move on to reading of last minutes. If anybody cannot see the screen, please let me know. If you can't hear me, please let me know. Do we have a motion to read the minutes?
I move to have the president read the minutes.
Well, I already did by saying sure, so you have to second.
I'm gonna let Chicken second because that means he doesn't have to read it.
Do we have a second to read the minutes from February?
Second.
All right, wonderful. Here is the Westmarch BoD February 2023 itinerary and minutes. The minutes were accepted and reviewed because Scoot determined that it must be done. The BoD members in attendance was Andy, me, James, Paul, Rose, Cindy, and Victoria Kathleen. Monarchy members James, Frankie, and Chris were here. We talked about how Out was awesome. The zombie hunt is going great. Somebody had a birthday. I think it was, I don't remember, we'll say Sean. And we talked about the new prime minister. Can't remember who that person is. Probably unimportant. We talked about the parameters of BoD discussion, being that this was kind of the first actually scheduled meeting. We wanted to talk about what BoD should do, could do, and what our focus should be for the year. Please feel free to read these notes. We talked about fundraising specifically because as a 501c7, we have different fundraising parameters than a 501c3. So we said, let's talk about going to a 501c3, which we probably will talk about today. Just talk, of course. I, once again, really stressed that the BoD should have access to all documents, and we also talked about waivers. We talked about finances, including the Circle of Monarchs payment. We talked about making recommendations to CA AmpGuard. We talked about Westmarch recording oversight, which gave into a big discussion about, again, the Circle of Monarchs and AmpGuard International. We talked about the scribe position, which Wendy said she would have filled by today, so that's good. We talked about streamlining records, fixing more CA AmpGuard stuff. Paul was going to talk about a trailer that's going to be pushed. Westmarch inventory, which was a disagreement between the monarchy and the board of directors on whether or not board of directors could assist with keeping track of Westmarch inventory or if that was overreach. The regent was going to talk about that in this meeting. Unfortunately, the regent cannot be here. We scheduled for March and we adjourned after a 2.5-hour meeting. Hopefully we'll do that today. Here are the topics for this day's meeting, along with other individuals. So that is the minutes for February. Do we have? Is everybody happy?
I second the motion.
Okay. All right. The fancy fun part of the section. Lord, if anybody had any announcements or shout outs, Lord Bear wanted to make a shout out. And Bear, do you have what you wrote out for your shout out?
Yeah, I got the March 26th at Felder, Inter-Kingdom Zombie Counter-Strike. That'll be at 12, game time 1 o'clock. And then we're going to go down April 1st. It's not a joke. April 1st, the Fool's Day. We're going to be having a zombie Counter-Strike at the Valley of the Fallen. Same time, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock game time. Then after that, we're going to make our way up north and help out some of the goblins, kobolds, and fairies that are taking cover against the undead on April 2nd in the Clockwork Spires territory. So hope to see everyone there, and good luck. Let's fight the undead.
I appreciate that very much. And again, thank you for visiting every land. I think that's awesome. And I'm very grateful that you're choosing to do all that stuff. Bear also gave a shout out to Zeno. I want to put that on the record. That was very kind of him. And I thought that was very nice. All right. The March agenda. Do we have a motion to postpone the trailer update from Paul?
Motion to postpone.
Does anybody want to second that since Paul isn't here?
I second it.
Thank you very much. Jody Van Tyne, I believe, I'm going to butcher her title. I think she's Lady Raven. I could be wrong. She put in that storing the boxes for Westmarch gear has been difficult. They live stacked on my patio one rain. Pots, cauldrons, and baking pans. One rain, we had people bringing rice cookers and cauldron. Storage of these types needed supplies for feast has always been a discussion. I really like the idea of having some type of proper storage. I love the idea of a trailer. I'm hopeful that moving forward we will have a good update from Paul and something we can actually discuss. We're going to move on to the scribe update. If anybody has anything against that, please state now. Otherwise, we'll ask Dame Wendy. Good Lord, Dame Wendy to give a brief update if that's okay. If you don't have an update, that's fine. Let's see.
Sorry, I
might be on
wrong button and
mute.
I couldn't get the unmute to unmute. I do not. I hit some pencil button. Okay. I do not have an update on the scribe. I do, however, this might be a side topic. Maybe I should table it, but
No, bring it up now. It's fine.
okay. I don't. Apparently, I don't have access to post on the Westmarch Facebook, and I need to get an announcement out there for being able to get the rest of the all thing votes from the other lands. I've barely gotten any.
Thank you very much. I'm going to message somebody right now on Facebook, a gentleman named Justin Smith, which everybody knows. I believe he has the capability of doing this. I'm going to ask him right now.
Yep. Thank you.
Actually, if you're gonna message him, I have something to talk about that's sort of related, or that's involving him. So, but I'm not sure if it's actually on the itinerary.
If you want to add things to our itinerary, I'm perfectly acceptable with that as long as there's a second and an approval.
Can I add an item to talk about right now about bank account access?
Second.
Sounds fine to me. Let's go for it.
Okay. Justin Smith needs to get transferred to Cindy and I access to the Wells Fargo bank account that belongs to Westmarch.
Can you not?
This is a very important topic to Sean, so.
And
we'll use Sean as the second.
The payment to Amcard International item is related to this because that either he needs to get a payment out before the end of the month, or we need to have access and one of us get the payment out. So
Justin Smith is responding right now about adding rights to Cindy Marie, and then I can also message him right now. That would be great. No rush. Thank you. Also, if acceptable to ask, can you get with Andy Brown about the rights to the Wells Fargo account at your convenience?
Andy and Cindy.
Andy and Cindy. He's read, but I'm sure he will connect at a reasonable time. Let's ensure we get a response before end of week. I hope that we choose to talk about Amcard International. I reached out to several individuals of Amcard International, and I hope that I can we can talk about it later, because I would like to find out if we need to make the payment before we make the payment, if that makes sense. Okay. There is no need to fill the scribe position. The Westmarch Corpora says that the scribe position can be left empty, but I think it would be a positive thing to add. I like diversifying arts and sciences. I think we have 2 new sword knights serpent knights in Westmarch quite soon, and I really like the encouraging of arts and sciences, and a scribe is something that I think we can find at least one person a year that would want to do it and find joy in doing it. So let's open up that search. If anybody has any idea, if anybody's at their park and wants to talk about it, hey, would you like to write a newsletter? Do you like to write? Make it fan fiction. Who cares? But getting something out there, I think, is a fun idea.
Wendy, do you want us to also possibly post it on the Dragonvale Discord and the Westmarch Discord as an announcement?
I think that would be a good idea. The more, we put it out there, the better. I'll be honest, I dropped the ball on this one and kind of forgot. So
you're doing 12 things. Don't say you dropped the ball.
I'm juggling too many.
Completely understandable. If you want, you can just send me the stuff if you want to, or I can give you access, but if you want to, I can post it for you. Just send me the stuff. I can copy and paste it and post it.
Okay, sounds good.
Alrighty.
Wonderful. I'm going to motion to move on from scribe update and bank account access to recruitment update.
Second.
Thank you. Okay. Comments from the recruitment committee, unfortunately due to weather, both of them are not here. Actually, all three of them. One of them is playing Final Fantasy. They did tell me, can't make it playing Final Fantasy. Honestly, I respect that. Weather has thrown a lot of this on the back burner, so we go to the third one. The BoD liaison position. I'm going to go into the Westmarch Capora. Here it is. And officers of the board of directors shall elect from their number a liaison. Oh, I'm not sharing. Good Lord. Sorry. Okay. Can you see the Westmarch Capora?
Yep.
Thank you. Okay. The board of directors shall elect from their number a liaison officer who shall be responsible for contact with all outside agencies. This is where I think, and I really want everybody's opinion on this, is this where we can not overstep our bounds? When I brought up recruitment last time, it was potentially met with, I don't think that's the board of directors' job, and that's fine. I don't want to overstep any bounds at all. If we have a liaison officer who is responsible for contact with all outside agencies, can agencies include Belagarth, Dagohir, SCA, the Makers Guild of Southern California, Disneyland? Does that seem like overreach in any capacity?
So my question would be, what is the exact verbiage in the Capora for Monarch? Because I remember it having something about the Monarch being the contact for outside agencies in the monarchy. And that's where I would personally see a potential for conflict.
Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. So we have here, be responsible for contact with all outside agencies. So we want to look for the Monarch information too now. Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, specifically the definition of Monarch duties in the Capora.
Absolutely. Looking it up right now. There's only 135 mentions of Monarch. This should be very swift.
Stop.
All right. The Monarch is the highest. We're going to make this bigger. Okay. I'm looking at the information here to see if there's anything that says about acting as a liaison. They're allowed to spend 10% of the treasury each month. Man, I need to become Monarch. I mean, never mind. So I don't see anything here about that. So we're going to continue looking really quick if that's okay.
If you search liaison, do you find it more often in the document?
Brilliant. Oh, doesn't say anything about liaison. That doesn't make any sense. Am I spelling liaison wrong? I'm going to go to 10 real quick. I apologize for searching. Searching is boring. Okay.
How is liaison supposed to be spelled?
Oh, Liaison. I apologize. So there are 2 of liaison. I don't know who said that, but you're a genius. All right, yeah, not there. Tragically not. So perhaps we can say, let's go ahead and assume, because that makes sense. Let's go ahead and assume that the monarch is also the official liaison for all Westmarch related communication between other groups. Let's assume that. Is it overstepping our bounds if the Westmarch BoD sends an email to Belagarth and say, hey, we got an event coming up, you should come?
I think possibly getting the liaison on, because we're talking about recruiting, right?
This is correct. All of this is, can the Westmarch BoD participate in recruitment? And I want to stress, if it's overreach, then we're not going to do it, and that's fine. We've got 20 million other things we can do. But I want to see if this is something that we can do.
I think we could fill this desire to be involved by getting the liaison on the recruitment group.
I have received some feedback that the recruitment group may have too many hands already. And
Okay.
until we get those individuals in the meeting to give the true, honest, what's going on, this is all hearsay. We can definitely table this until next month if we're hesitant on anything, which I'm perfectly fine with.
So I don't really feel like it's overstepping. I think if anything, it's effectively delegating, because my reading of Monarch is more inter-kingdom with regards to making sure that inter-kingdom discussion and representation and communication is done effectively, versus if you have the Monarch doing that and the BoD doing more outside reach. I think that could potentially benefit from different angles, but that's just kind of
I'm
my
not
thought process.
reading anything that I see in there that seems to be giving those duties to anyone specifically in Westmarch. And as far as overstepping over the Kapora Committee is an unofficial group that has no actual standing or power, who probably work really, really hard, but like, if it's official stuff, it would make more sense to have someone who is an official elected member of Westmarch in some capacity in charge, or at least, being able to do.
I don't necessarily think that we need to or we need not to. It's more of a discussion. If we're going to reach out to outside groups, I think it should be more of a discussion of what would be beneficial. I mean, whether it's overreaching or not, I mean, anybody could do anything. That's the beauty of this game. We're a game full of volunteers, and does the BoD have to manage it and run it? I don't know. Probably not, but could they help?
I don't think that we need to, but I also don't think that it would anyway be an overstep.
It would be a low priority task if the BoD liaison said, hey, I want to focus on this, and we would say, hey, liaison, well, we still have the waivers, we still have to submit to the IRS, we still have to look into the payment to AmpGuard International. Recruitment, there's other people doing that, and maybe our time could be spent better on other tasks. Is that kind of it?
That matches what I feel very well, yes.
Perfect. So hypothetically, and then I'm not asking for anything, this isn't official rule or anything, but hypothetically, if we had nothing else to do, we could encourage a liaison in the future to potentially reach out to another group in a recruitment capacity. Potential.
Sure.
I don't see anything that says we couldn't.
Perfect. Great. All right. Motion to move on to the COM and AmpGuard International finance update from our very own, let's give him a hand, Andy Brown.
Second.
Thank you.
So do I need to wait for the clapping or can I just start?
There you go.
Okay, so first off, I see on the itinerary it says $600 fees is in the title. It's actually $500. So you want to change that or not? Whatever.
No, we definitely want to change that. I have a graphic to present alongside your present if you wish, but you are correct. It is $500, and I apologize. That's my bad.
Cool. So, what graphic are you going to present? Just so I know which one. Hey, can you be quiet for a minute?
It's just notes based upon what you provided, as well as other research that other individuals did. The proposal link, so we can open up these if you wish, and we can review all this information as we go along. The annual payment is $500. During February, it's brought $600. Let's just retell you verbiage. That's my bad because I already screwed it up. Hi. Go for it, Scoot. Take it away.
All right. So what I did some research over the month and really last week mostly. And what I found out and discovered is when this, for anybody not familiar, we have an agreement as a kingdom with AmpGuard International. We have a contract that requires us to do certain things. And under that contract, we acted within the authority and all of the different kingdoms signed a agreement to pay AmpGuard International a $500 licensing fee basically every year. And it's supposed to be due by January 31st. It's delinquent if not received by March 31st. So I spoke with a member of the AmpGuard International BoD about this and talked with him and then did research alongside that. In the meeting where this was all approved, there was actually mention of the previous over or under payments from kingdoms towards legal fees that had been assessed. The decision along those lines was that this new agreement supplants any other payments that would otherwise be done, and it doesn't address over or under payments from the past. Like, this is completely separate. The $500 is owed and due, even regardless of anything else. If we wanted to, we could have our monarch bring up at the next Circle of Monarchs meeting in, I think it'll probably be July. They were talking about doing a quarterly one, but I'm not 100% on whether that started or not. If we wanted to, we could encourage our monarch, who's currently James Anderson, to take it to the Circle of Monarchs and say, hey, I believe that we overpaid and I feel that we should get credit back. That is a thing that he would have to discuss and present at the Circle of Monarchs meeting, and not actually even something that as a BoD we could touch.
We do have the proposal and the licensing agreement and the details of the proposal. The BoD, according to, and this is going to be an interesting conversation, of course, we are in charge of all contractual obligations. The board of directors shall deal with any government or outside agency, business or organization, or any of the local chapters, subsidiary chapters with regard to contractual obligations. I believe our agreement with AI is a contractual obligation. Please tell me I'm wrong if I am. I'm definitely infallible, not infallible.
You are absolutely correct, and it was signed by the monarch and the BoD president, and I believe the secretary, one other member of the BoD. I don't remember which one. Last year in November.
Just as a quick note, Cindy is an admin on Westmarch now, and
Hooray.
Justin Smith is chatting with Cindy tomorrow, where they will discuss the process on the bank transfer.
Excellent.
For the payment, I was under the impression that we had already paid this year. Is that not correct?
That is incorrect. We have not made a payment this year, and I personally, with zero power, think we should strongly encourage not making this payment until we get an answer. Yes, that is a terrible recommendation, but I'm saying it, and we should probably consider connecting with AmpGuard International and saying, we have made an overpayment, you can see this on the screen share, of $6,872. From 2017 to 2023, we paid $9,800. We currently show an overpayment on their spreadsheet of $3,000. There are many other groups that are in the red. I do not believe they have been punished. I think it is acceptable to ask AmpGuard International for a moratorium until we receive an answer as to why we don't have to make a payment, or why we have to make a payment when the other ones don't. Especially when we've paid so much more than everybody else.
In a personal opinion, I agree with you. However, our kingdom representative agreed to this.
I reached out to Westmarch Representative Christy Under several times. She voted yes on this proposal twice. I wanted to find out why and where we are at. I would love to get a response from her before we make a forward motion, but I am not going to put my foot down in any capacity. If we're like, we'll make the payment and ask for a refund in July, then I'm all for it and I will vote for it. But I really would like to bring up and put on the record that I don't see a reason why we need to pay more at this moment.
So what happens if we don't pay?
1 second, let me get to that section of the agreement. It's in the contract if you want to pull it up, Brian.
I'm going to pull up the tract right now.
If it's par for the course, the usual ramification is pulling your ability to play AmpGuard, which is possibly why no consequences have happened for other kingdoms that didn't pay, because it's kind of an extreme consequence.
That is a consequence. I'm just trying to pull up the things because there is an answer for this in there. I'm just trying to pull it up so I read it correctly.
For some reason, these Google Doc links are not working anymore. Super frustrating. I apologize for the delay. I must have lost access to these Google Docs. Is it the licensing agreement? Is that what you're looking at, Andy?
Yes, that is the correct location.
Thank you. I've just opened it. I am going to share the screen for the licensing agreement so everybody can see it. All right, can everybody see the licensing agreement? Or can anybody see the licensing agreement?
Yeah, I can see it.
Wonderful. Oh, I don't think this is it. Let's see here. Okay,
It looks
proposed
like
funding.
Paul has joined the party, just so the secretary knows.
Thank you, Paul.
Noted.
All right.
Thank you.
Compliance. Sanctions applied to individual kingdoms that fail to remit the annual general revenue payment to AmpGuard International by the prescribed due date will be as follows. Failure to remit the payment by March 31st, which is 10 days from today, the BoD will inform blah, blah, blah. Hey, money is due, and they'll post on the Facebook page. Failure to remit by June 30th, kingdoms will lose powers granted in the Kingdom Licensing Agreement under recognition of Kingdom of AmpGuard items 2, 3, and 4.
Okay. If you think it's bad, you should use it.
This is where we have to look at two things. The majority of the AmpGuard kingdoms are behind on their payments. We are way ahead on our payments. And Paul, just to bring you in, we're having a brief conversation about AmpGuard International the Circle of Monarchs conversation this July and the $500 fee about that we are paying to Amcard International. Because we have paid so much more than everybody else, we're having a simple discussion on whether or not we should reach out to Amcard International to get a definitive answer. Hey, why are we paying this when we've overpaid by $6,000?
That is a fair question to ask them.
Yes, and I do, just to loop you in, nobody here is mandating that we don't make the payment. Nobody here is saying that we are going to rattle the saber against Amcard International. We are full support of them, but I think it's a fair question.
Well, if we paid over $6,000 to Amcard International, we're clearly in full support of them.
I completely agree. I'm gonna pull this up really quick so you can see this here. From 2017 to 2023, we paid $9,800 to Amcard International. According to their own sheet, we have an overpayment of nearly $3,000, where everybody else, except for one other kingdom, is in the red. I calculated that I believe we have an overpayment of $6,872. These are due to capitulation payments, which are getting sued, legal fees, stuff like that. Kingdom payments are supposed to be made $500, paid to this person here, use the QR code, blah, blah, blah. So we are discussing right now whether or not we should consider reaching out to Amcard International, which Scoot is currently talking and I'm interrupting. Go for it, Scoot, sorry.
I mean, you were pretty well on topic the whole time. So once again, in my personal opinion, as a person, we overpaid in the past, and we should hold methods to get repaid or get credit for that. That being said, when our kingdom representative agreed to this and approved it, and that was a separate issue that didn't involve this. Now, as a person who does business at my job and has to deal with this kind of thing, yes, not paying somebody is the best way to get them to agree to something, but it absolutely is. Anyways, that's not something that is a legally valid option with this contract.
I mean, it seems to me that the argument is that this is a separate contract, at which case what we should be doing is requesting a refund of the $6,000, seeing as that was paid when there was a set amount that we were trying to reach up to. And that's how we got overpayments, is by actually attempting to reach the amount that we had agreed to pay. But they canceled that and instead have installed this, yearly, not a set amount. And if they're not willing to state that, the previous contract is now merged into this one and that it's a separate thing, then they should give us our money back, because they obviously, did not fulfill that contract to its end.
Well, I think also, didn't it say in the capitulation agreement section of the contract we were just reading that there was like payment plan options? So wouldn't we potentially be able to negotiate a payment plan for the future if we were to pay this time and then talk to them like, hey, we've already overpaid?
I'm going to drop this link into the chat just in case anybody else can pull it up. I don't know if you'll be able to, but I'm dropping it in just in case. Victoria, where did you see that?
We were looking, where was it we were just looking at?
Sanctions, it's under compliance, item 2.
Oh, sorry.
Part A.
Right.
There we are.
So if you go into A, it talks about negotiating a payment plan for folks that effectively have failed to make the payments that they're supposed to be making. I don't see why we couldn't do something similar if we are making those payments, potentially negotiating a new payment plan for our kingdom, since we've already overpaid and it's very obvious that we've overpaid.
So this section specifically refers to charges that they extend over and above the 500 per year, which
Right.
has nothing to do with anything except just that's what this section is talking about. I realize that you're talking about going and negotiating a payment plan on our own. Is that what I'm reading?
Basically, yes.
Cool. I don't think it's a terrible idea, and I think we should do it. But once again, I from my reading and my understanding, that is something we have to have our monarch or monarchy representative do at a Circle of Monarchs meeting.
Oh, for 100%. Yeah.
I don't see why it's got to be at a Circle of Monarchs meeting. Why couldn't it just be on the Circle of Monarchs Facebook group?
Certainly could be, but
you have to be a member of the Circle of Monarchs to post there.
Is there extensive overreach if the board of directors sends a message to AmpGuard International asking for clarification on overpayment and asking for details on refunding, so to speak? Basically, not waiting till the Circle of Monarchs meeting. Can we have the Prime Minister do it? Can we have the Treasurer do it? Can we have just the BOD in general reach out? Is that something we can do?
I'd like to ask Fix's opinion on this. He could give us insight into who we should be talking to.
Why Fix specifically?
Because he's either on the AIBOD or on the XCOM.
Fair enough. Thank you.
I will say at some point in time, if Fix decides to stop interacting with Westmarch, there's going to be a very serious issue. I hope that we are treating him very well and people are bringing him cupcakes. I also think that I encourage that we strive for independence, but I hope that doesn't come across as a negative thing. I hope that we can all do things on our own. All right, so
I just didn't know if he was on like something like that, and if that was the suggestion, or if it was just because he knows a lot.
He does know a lot. Oh, he's been around longer than goodness. I'm gonna dare say all of us. I would like somebody tell me whether or not the BOD reach out to AmpGuard International and ask what the heck is going on, or if instead we should speak to Fix, try and get in contact with Christine. What should we do here? Or let James take care of it? What do we want to do? Say that again.
¿Por qué no los dos? I mean, I feel like anyone could reach out to AmpGuard International and ask questions, even if we weren't like a member of the kingdom, if we just wanted to know things. They should be kind of like us and obligated to respond to players' requests for information, especially on how our funds are being used, because that money that they took from them, from Westmarch, it's not just Westmarch's, it's every single person who paid dues' money that they took and used in that way.
We have a fiduciary duty to the dues payers of Westmarch to ensure that we're spending this money wisely.
Yeah. Well, I'm also saying that the XCOM has a fiduciary duty to the members of AmpGuard, be they from a freehold to a kingdom seat, to explain how they're using our money, why they're taking it, why one kingdom's having to pay a bunch of money while another isn't. That I feel like they should have to answer those questions, even if it's just Joe Smo from a freehold who's asking.
Well, I would like to I would like permission to put together an email to send to Andy Brown, to send to James, and to send to Cindy for initial review, and then we'll send it to everybody else. Probably also Victoria, because she's a lawyer. Let's drop that in. I would like to craft an email and say, hey, does this make sense? And let y'all review it before we send anything out, and get green lights from everybody involved.
I make a motion for you to do that.
All right. Well, if we get a second, then I'll put together the email and send it to all the members of the BOD and be like, well, I'll drop it in the Discord, to be honest.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. I'm gonna put it on record that I ain't sending them nothing until everybody signs off on it. And if we can get it out this week, that'll be great. I'm gonna put all on. We'll make an email and get confirmation before anything goes out. I can't spell. All right.
So I actually did talk to a member of the AIBOD while doing research on this, and
I love it.
Trying to get that conversation in a usable format, and that's it's not working well right now. It was Dusty, yes.
We are one of only 2 kingdoms that have made overpayments. I'm going to share this screen for everybody. Thank you again, Scoot. You've done a ton of research on this. Thank you so much for what you did. I hope that everybody can see this. It is the payments here, and it's difficult to make this large, but I'm going to highlight Westmarch right here. We have made an overpayment of $2,000. Everybody else is in the red, and as far as I know, Dragonspine, Golden Vale, Northern Lights, Tal de Gore, Emerald Hills are still Amtgard kingdoms. Emerald Hills is $4,000 behind. We don't know why. It's none of our business. But I'm looking, and a lot of these kingdoms didn't make payments in 2021 and didn't make payments in 2022. Yet we have made overpayments. And I just, before we throw more money at the wall and then ask for a refund, I don't know. It frustrates me a smidgen. I'll acknowledge that.
I think that frustration is entirely valid.
Just don't want to come across as like, we need to do this now, rattle the saber. But I hope that Amtgard International will look at the Iron Mountains and Westmarch and go, yeah, we don't need $500 from you. You guys have gone above and beyond. That's what I would like to hear. And if we owe them $500 a year, I think we're covered for the next 6 years, since we're $3,000 over. Is that a pipe dream? Probably, but I don't know. All right. So if there's no conclusion, I was going to ask for a special session regarding the future COM AI fee. We're going to go ahead and bypass that because I'm going to put together an email. But would anybody like to get together to discuss this further at a completely separate time? Not necessary at all. Does anybody want to get together to talk about this further at another date in the next week or two?
Not really.
All right, that's okay. Do we have anything else, Andy, that you would like to talk about regarding the Amtgard International fee?
Mostly just well, I was kind of hoping that we could at least get together and pay this year, which I know that there's a whole bunch of things against it as far as personal preference and fairness and all that. But
I think realistically it would be detrimental to breach our contract like that. I don't think it would benefit us at all. aside from saving the money, I think it would put us in kind of a weird spot. And I think instead of putting ourselves in that awkward position where they have a different kind of leverage over our ability to play AmpGuard, I think we pay them the money and then we see what we can do about fixing it for the future. I agree with that.
All right. I put into the notes, it's a smart idea to make the payment in faith and negotiate for future years. I'm not going to argue with the lawyer and the knight. If somebody puts it forward, I'll second it that we make this payment. I will say that I don't want to, because when.
I move that we direct Cindy to work with Justin Smith to get this paid in the next 10 days.
I second.
Second.
When?
I agree, but I mean,
Yeah, no, I get it.
Sir Scoot threatens board with pain of death if payment isn't made.
like I'd let you die. You have work to do.
All right.
I also would go ahead and record it. Sorry.
No. Motion to ask PM to get with Justin Smith to ensure payment is made to AI for 2023.
Second.
And then my other motion would be to discuss with James Anderson a proposal to have him bring this forward in the next Circle of Monarchs chance, whether it be the Facebook group and bring it up, whether it be at the next Circle of Monarchs meeting, whatever, to address this aggressively on the kingdom's behalf.
Second.
Emphatic third. I think that's wonderful. All right, passed both. All right, so does anybody want to say on record that we should not make this payment for 2023?
Besides you?
Like the man. Yeah. Okay, so there's silence on that, but I wanted to provide anybody the opportunity to say anything if they wished. All right. Did anybody have anything else to say on this payment to AmpGuard International? Going to take that as a no. Motion to move forward.
I move to go to the next topic.
Somebody say second.
Second.
Thank you
Second.
so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Chavez. Paul, since you are here, would you like to discuss the trailer? We do have to discuss it. I know you are a busy individual. Would you like to postpone this to April, or would you like to talk about it now? Entirely up to you.
Yeah, we've got to postpone it to April. I had some life events come up that precluded me from looking into this.
I want you to know that we did mention that you absolutely, the fact that you're even here, we are thankful. And if you logged off, we would understand. So thank you so much for just taking the time to be here. I hope in future meetings we do get to talk. I really want to hear the story of your journey where you visited all the parks. I'm going to hold you to telling us that story. All right. So we are going to have a very brief conversation with approval about a 501c3. Does anybody have, well, we already moved, so that's what we're talking about. Let me go ahead and let's see, where is it? Aha! Boom! All right. There is a lot of text here. I had the opportunity to speak with Justin Smith, and I had the opportunity to speak very briefly with several other members of Westmarch. I am not the first person to say we should be a 501c3. In fact, in our last board of directors meeting, Andy Brown also mentioned that he was kind of interested in that as well. Does anybody have any comments they would like to make before I start to ramble?
Well, so the my understanding when we became a 501c7 is that 501c3s were incredibly hard to obtain. You had to provide proof of like that you were a historical educator. My understanding is that those regulations have lessened to some effect, and that's when Belagarth became a 501c3 was after that.
I appreciate that, Paul, and I'm grateful you're here because you have been around a bit longer than myself, obviously, and that's information that I did not have. If we need to, I was going to turn on my camera and just show my 501c3. I was able to create a 501c3 because I had $243, and I said I wanted to promote outdoor pursuits. That was basically the extent. There was more into it. I'm being facetious, but AmpGuard meets the qualifications, or excuse me, Westmarch meets the qualifications, in my opinion, as a charitable organization. AmpGuard meets I keep saying AmpGuard, I'm so sorry. Westmarch meets the requirement for a charitable organization due to what I have listed here. We do education, we do donations, charitable donations, and we are not for profit. I believe that if we decided to have a discussion about this, it's something that we could become if we wished. My question to the board is, who would have to make this decision? Who would we have to talk to and get the green light on? Is this a kingdom all thing? Is this a monarch decision? Or is this a board of directors decision? And there is no rush on this. I am not pushing to be a 501c3 tomorrow. But
I would
who
imagine
would
that it would be an all thing.
I think it would require us to do an all thing because I think it would require a pretty significant amendment to our corpora.
What kind of amendment? Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to ask you what kind of amendments you thought we might need. I'm really interested.
So I didn't get to go through it as thoroughly as I was hoping to, but from the brief sort of glimpses into it that I have been taking over the past few days, the requirements for sort of assigning a certain individual or a certain entity for the purposes of legal actions needs to be very straightforward, assigning specific members of the board. And I think we would just, the language of our corpora would have to be adjusted in order to meet very specific requirements. But at the same time, I don't know, because if Belagarth was able to become a 501c3, I don't know anything about their corpora, or their equivalent of. But I imagine it's also not the most in-depth. My other concern with regards to the 501c3s was I wasn't sure how we would be able to explain our use of our funding, because I guess AmpGuard, especially if we're paying AmpGuard International. So I think that's something that we would have to sit down and sort of figure out how to explain the charity aspect of that and where that money is going.
So
AmpGuard International is a C3 itself, isn't it?
Yes.
And really what we're doing is we're paying a licensing fee to be able to use the rule set and the intellectual property, right? I'm asking Victoria's opinion, sorry.
I'm not sure. I don't know a whole lot about our relationship with AmpGuard International. So being a part of the board is kind of cool for me because I get to see that relationship a little bit more closely. So anybody who has better insight in that would be awesome.
As somebody who kind of fumbles around with a 501c3, I know that all of my records have to be public. All of my records, in terms of financials, need to be provided at request. And we do have to have, I'm trying to think the right way to phrase it, but we have to have who is in charge of what. We have to have a sexual harassment thing as an official statement signed off by the board. So there's a lot of things we would have to add, but it's all, in my opinion, simple documentation that can be completed. But I think adding something to the Kapora is required, because as a C3, we would need to say where all funding is going and what excess funds would be used for.
So really, and what I'm hearing, basically what we need to do is define the legal terms that a 501c3 asks us to define.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that doesn't seem. Well,
I
I'll
mean,
ask Rose since she's on the Kapora committee.
I mean, the Kapora committee is just a bunch of people who throw around ideas and then ask the monarch to put them on. It's not an official committee, so it has as much power as any individual doing it, but a lot more hands and eyes looking at things. So I'm not sure that that would necessarily make anything.
Okay.
But as far as like where our spending goes, just from having been on the BoD for the last year, Westmarch pretty much just spends money on events and activities within Westmarch. Like, we don't really spend money that much outside of the organization, but we do also participate in Food Fight, which is is a donation thing. But I think that would probably make things easier, because Westmarch is, historically not really spent money on like frivolous stuff. It's usually very set events and things.
Everything that Westmarch spends is to the benefit of the participants currently. And I think that would be very easy to transition over to a C3, as we are spending to further our mission, which our mission is to participate in a game which creates activity, health, inclusivity, and outdoor pursuits.
Can you go back to the other document real quick? The your research on 501c3?
Absolutely.
Also, art. AmpGuard is really big on encouraging art and different art forms. I mean, a lot of them are historical too. I learned how to weave because of AmpGuard. I learned how to do embroidery because I wanted to embroider stuff for AmpGuard. I know.
And that's a good point. And bringing up the mission statement, I think we'd have to be very careful with how we write it, because basically the safest bet is to make it as broad as possible, so we as an organization can use the funding that we have to pay for all of the things that we would particularly like to spend that money on. But if it's too narrow for any kind of reason, then we're locked into where that money can go. It's just I think it's, I don't know if it's a corpora committee thing that's something we should shoot their direction, or if that's something we as the BoD want to sit down and really talk about what kind of language we would want to look at. But I do think the actual changes to the language is probably the hardest part. Not necessarily difficult, but ultimately will be the hardest part of making sure we can qualify.
We can take the language of the SCA and Belagarth and other nonprofit organizations, 501c3s. We don't have to reinvent the wheel, but we can certainly edit it to make our activities the most bountiful.
Heck,
plagiarism is king.
We can take the ones from AmpGuards that are CO3s.
Yeah, we could literally just cut and paste the AmpGuard Internationals, I feel like.
So looking at this, it looks like we would qualify for the list of exempt purposes that it gives. We are educational. We teach people how to do things. That's the arts and sciences side of AmpGuard. And we also definitely foster amateur sport or national amateur sports competition. I'm daddy.
I gotta tell you, my 501c3 was to cultivate and foster outdoor pursuits with a recreational and health standpoint. I think that's what it's the most generic BS ever, and it was just a rubber stamp approved. I really think we could put together something very open-ended, like Victoria brought up, to benefit us the most. And if we're asked to align it more strongly, we could definitely do that. But I would shoot for the moon first. I don't see a problem with being vague to give us the greatest amount of leeway.
I think the benefits of doing this would just so far outweigh any of the possible negatives that it should be something that we do.
Thank you for that, Rose. I genuinely agree with that. We are limited to 35% of our funding for our possible fundraising, and we cannot even give a tax exempt receipt for it. So in that capacity alone, I think there's value there. The second thing I would mention is I do not know how much the service processing fee is for a C7 versus a C3. That could potentially cost more. That's something we definitely would have to look into. I don't have access to the C7 documentation because Westmarch apparently hides everything. So I would like to see what we are paying, and obviously we have something due by March, so I'm sure we'll review that here. Is anybody in charge of submitting the tax documentation for 2023? Do we know about that at all?
It's been the
usually
Prime Minister.
So it's in Cindy's in charge of it?
Yep.
Well, Cindy, I expect you to find a scribe before you submit our tax documents.
Wow.
Cindy,
Man, did I get dumped on today?
Cindy, I have help for you on that. Would you like a scribe?
Yes, I would really like a scribe right now.
Great, I have a scribe for you.
Oh my God, who is it?
It's
If you say
my
show.
squire.
Oh my goodness. Wait a minute, your squire's a knight.
I got a new
Yeah,
one.
he already has a new one. Jay.
Who's your squire?
Jay.
I would, number one, brilliant. I love Jay. They are a wonderful individual. But they seem like they have a very busy schedule.
They do, but they also really are very personally interested in doing this kind of thing.
I fully support that and would support Jay in whatever capacity they chose to participate in being the scribe for Westmarch. Please,
Okay.
that sounds great.
Just flip it everywhere.
What?
And this will totally make up for him moving parks and thus not being able to take over PM.
Yeah.
I have heard a tale about how Jay coming down to Sierra Gata was actually a spy mission, and they were apparently very successful.
I've had worse spies.
Okay.
All right. So what do we need to do action-wise on this subject?
I would like to make a motion to table this to the April all thing for more information gathering.
Okay.
Second.
I also think it would be very important to have the Monarch available for these conversations.
Seems likely.
I'd like to hear from Victoria what specific things need to be in our Kapora to satisfy the requirements for a 501c3.
That sounds like some good research to be done.
Make Victoria do work.
Do it.
Sounds exciting.
All right, I'm going to scroll up to scribe update.
I'm not gonna lie, when elections for the BoD were up, a lot of people were like, who's Victoria? And then they heard, oh, she's a lawyer, and they're like, oh yeah, definitely her. Let's add her.
I had
To be fair, no one
idea.
said I was a good lawyer.
Woof.
All right, is there a good lawyer?
That is a great question.
All right, who'd like to move on to digital waivers?
I don't know if you're a good lawyer, but I'm going to say without any real need to verify that you're better than
I agree.
All right, let's hear from Rose on digital waivers. I second that motion.
Seconded.
Okay, so we can do digital waivers ourselves, which would involve building the waivers and storing the waivers and a lot of work to figure out how to like link all the different parts. I also took a look though, and if we just bought a service that does waivers.
Rose, hang on a sec. Is anybody else having trouble hearing her?
Yeah, it's a little rough, Rose. I'm very sorry.
Do I sound better?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
Rose, come here.
Okay.
Mute yourself on.
Wait a second.
I'm muted.
Rose, would you like me to take notes about what you're going to talk about with digital waivers?
I believe you're supposed to in general for the meeting.
I'm right on top of that, Rose.
Anyway, so to repeat what I said before, it is fully possible for us to make our own waivers. We could use Google Docs. Okay, Sean. But there are a lot of difficult issues that would come up from that. Linking for the different parks, how to store, how to create things so that we can find them. I took a look online just to see how much just hiring a waiver service would be. And it's actually really cheap, especially if you don't need that many in any particular month. So I included a BoD Discord.
I have pasted those into the minutes and they are currently being shared.
It looks like, depending on how many waivers, we could go down as low as $10 a month for 70 waivers a month. Those would be new waivers. All of the ones that get signed and are kept in existence would, just stay. But we'd be able to add 70 new ones each month. They'd store them for us. There would be an app or a website, depending on which you'd prefer to use, that you would be able to go to bring up the waiver. And then all you'd have to do is fill it out and it would store it, and Westmarch would be able to pull up any of the waivers if we ever got sued by just searching for the person's name.
So Rose, let me get this correct. $10 a month, 70 waivers a month. They host, and there's an app where you can search the waivers.
I'm not sure if you could search the waivers on the app. You can fill it out on the app. There's also a website, and you can definitely search the waivers on the website.
Okay, searching on the website, every prime minister at every park downloads an app, enters in the username and the password, digital waiver.
Yep. Doesn't actually necessarily have to even enter in the username and password. I'm not sure about that, but it could just be the app.
$120 a year.
Now that is the low end. Most of the low end ones for the different ones I looked at were at least less than $20. I think the high low end one was like 18. Most of them, it seemed like the second tier was 100 waivers. And then if we some reason needed a huge amount, it did get a little bit more expensive for that, like around the $30 to $50 a month range. However, I did go look at the ORC
to see the average attendance over the last 6 months. There's a different report that I didn't manage to pull up yet that would show how many actual new people. But if the attendance in the last 6 months is anything to go off of, I don't believe that we would be breaking 70 waivers a month usually, unless something crazy happened.
Demos.
All of your notes I did drop into the chat, so it is shared on shared on the Zoom. And Smart Waiver is $18 for 100. Clever Waiver is $10 for 70. Waiver Electronic is $12 for 70. Per orc, there were less than 200 players signed in across Westmarch any given month, and there are 189 active players. If we guesstimate even as much as half of the players needed waivers, that's less than 100. None of us like to spend money, obviously. But this, I think, resolves a pretty serious issue of where is this person's waiver if they choose to sue us? And I hate to say it, but $120 a year is brilliant. Now, why, Rose, this is my question. Why can't we just have a Microsoft sheet or a Google Docs digital waiver?
So the main problem that I see with that is twofold. One is storage. Where is the actual files that are being pulled sent to? The other is creation and access. So we would have to make it. I feel like we would probably, if we're wanting to make a digital waiver that is legally, as useful as possible, we need to have a lawyer look at it to make sure that, however we set up electronic signatures is good. And then the other problem is like, if Westmarch is making the waivers and it's going into a Google Drive, how do we give every prime minister at every park access? Like, are we going to have to go in and set them every election? Because that's been a pretty big problem in Westmarch in the past. Is, having to contact the prime ministers from every park is not necessarily an easy or, always feasible task from the kingdom side. Some people don't have great contacts, and if they're out of shire, it's very hard to get their contact information. The benefit of this is it would be stored by Westmarch, it would be controlled by Westmarch. If somebody in Quixotic Valley tried to sue, Westmarch would be the person that they'd be suing, and yet Westmarch would have a very difficult time being able to necessarily get the waiver from Quixotic Valley.
So that is the shell game that happened when the IABOD decided to pull waivers from the orc, according to Fix. Because they didn't want AmpGuard to hold like the legal responsibility if there's a data breach.
We wouldn't be holding legal responsibility if there would be a data breach. It would be the company that we were facilitating through.
No, I agree. A service like this would answer that question of gotcha. Who is responsible.
Force Victoria to make us new legal ironclad waiver. I love it.
I apologize. I dropped in the chat that I had to step away for 30 seconds. Thank you very much for letting me run away for a second. All right. Obviously we could cut and paste the existing waiver into a Google Docs, hypothetically. We could add an e-sign to it, hypothetically. We could make a Gmail called Westmarch digital waivers and upload every last one of them. None of them would be searchable unless the Prime Minister manually saved them as John Smith waiver, Kevin Smith waiver. That's the free option. Like Rose accurately pointed out, that seems to be a lot of work, but it would be free. Does anybody have a thought process as to why we shouldn't move to digital waivers? And please know I'm not trying to call anybody out. Like, seriously, what's the negative to this? I would like to know.
The only negative that I can really think of is that some parks would not go through the process of using the app. However, I would counter that with the same parks that aren't willing to download an app and use it while at their park. Probably aren't willing to spend money printing physical waivers either.
Yep. I think if we are going to move to a 501c3, if we are going to grow, which we all know that AmpGuard can do, that Westmarch can do, there are some parks who are very good at growing and saving waivers so that when little Sally gets hit in the head, doesn't sue us, is a brilliant idea. And I'll ask the treasurer, Andy Brown, who mentioned how much our finances are. In your opinion, is $120, let's say $200 a year, is that a cost that Westmarch could afford, hypothetically?
Let me pull up my data here.
And while Andy is pulling that up, let's start thinking about who we would need to get approval from. Is this a Kingdom All thing? Is this a board of directors decision, or is this a monarchy decision? And would we have to update the Kapora? Would we have to make a Kapora amendment to have this implemented?
I don't believe so. I think it would be a monarchy decision, much like our post box.
It will require a contract, so even if the monarchy gives it a go, it'll have to go through us.
I feel that an all thing is a good idea in general. I know that that's terrible because it puts it out in the world and there's all sorts of drama that could potentially happen. But I think that keeping the populace as part of this type of decision really helps invest people in the kingdom.
Yeah, I like that.
I do think if we go the 501c3 route, we will need some language in the corpora explaining that some funding is going towards protecting. I actually think that purchasing a digital waiver, kind of like Paul was saying, is the safest route we can go, just respect to confidentiality of people's information. I think that's the safest bet. And it would probably put less hands in people's confidential information, since less people would have access to it at that point. So that I think, if anything, that makes it more of a good idea just in itself.
I love it. Digital waiver makes information confidential, makes things easier for the Prime Minister, and makes things safer for Westmarch. This is probably a contractual decision between the monarchy and BoD. Having an all thing is still probably a good idea to get everybody on board and supportive. And if we do this, the possibility of recommending a mild Kapora language would be a smart update. So kind of everything. And that's okay. That's okay. That's what we're here for. We can do all of that. And if we get the prime ministers and the monarchs of each park on board, then they can convince their individuals to vote which way that we want them to vote. I don't see anybody going against this. It's not a big amount of spending, especially if the monarch says, I want this, it's a good idea. So it sounds like we need to talk to James about this and see what James says. So
for the record, theoretically, if Thistledown decided that he wanted to do this could potentially be covered within his 10%.
I don't think
really?
perpetuity is a good idea, though.
Huh?
Maybe for the first year, but after that, it should be covered under the normal budget.
I agree. It should be covered, but just as a point of record, it would be within 10%.
I think the note is how affordable it is because it is less than 10% of the funds.
So our net income from mid-August to mid-February was $2,235.
That's for one.
And our total expenses for that period were $875.
Were those expenses due to any specific events, or were those expenses due to something else?
We paid for mid-rain. We
Okay.
paid for some awards to be made.
Okay.
We paid some things to fund recruitment, and we have other, which I'm not actually sure is what it is. I'd have to do research on that.
So that's called discretionary spending, which none of it is budgetary spending. So that means that our budgetary spending is $500 a year to AmpGuard International.
Mhm.
Potentially,
I'll take what it was.
let's say potentially $200 for digital waivers, and then our nonprofit yearly fee spending. So we're below $1,000. And in Q1, we made $2,000. Is that correct?
Roughly. No, 6-month period.
Okay, great. I think this is something we should strongly look into. Does anybody have anything against pursuing this next month if James is in attendance?
Absolutely not.
Wonderful. And please know if somebody has something against anything, this is a complete, I hate to use the phrase safe space, but this is a safe space. Like, nobody's going to come back at you if you don't like something. Always know you can speak up, except Dagger, who can't speak.
For the record, Champion supports this.
Thank you, Bear Bear. I appreciate that very much. Please always speak up, Bear Bear. You have Chris. You always have a mic in my meetings.
All right, no problem. Christopher Bear is fine.
Listen, be quiet, okay? Motion to move on to BOD enticement.
I second that.
Yay! All right. Oh goodness, I gotta open up a file. I'm a terrible person.
Yay!
All right. Can we get a second?
It was seconded.
Oh, thank you very much. Oh, I have it open. How about that? It's hidden under the Easy Kingdom payments. All right. This is the Westmarch Board of Directors Handbook. I'm going to casually scroll through it. We have notes from 2016 and previous BOD. We have general information, including the PO box. Information about the I-99 filing deadline is pending research. And so it has a copy of an old version of the Kapora. I apologize for scrolling quickly, but what I'm attempting to do, I did focus our itinerary on the Westmarch Board of Directors Handbook. This is the how we have been doing things. What I would like to do is I would like to update the Westmarch Board of Directors Handbook. I do not want to rewrite the Kapora. I think that's aggressive overreach at this point in time. What I would like to do is change my sharing screen here. I would like to unofficially say, hey, we can get AmpGuard credit for people who are on the board of directors. I want to make a Westmarch Board of Directors AmpGuard Amp Wiki page. I would like to put the BOD handbook somewhere, and I would like to celebrate people who attempt to join this meeting, people that spend their time not swinging swords and throwing lightning bolts. This is really unrelated to normal board of directors meetings, normal board of directors tasks. I really acknowledge that. But in previous meetings, we asked James, hey, James, can you give people color credit because they did a 2.5-hour BOD meeting? And James is like, yeah, that's something I could potentially do. He's not here, so that's not an official statement in any capacity, of course. But I'd like to get approval from everybody in this meeting to update the board of directors handbook, which Rose was kind to send over to me, and simply put in some recommendations for a future meeting. Say, hey, here's the new handbook, here's a table of contents, here's kind of unofficial recommendations for what we should expect out of the board of directors. Does anybody have anything against that, and does that make any sense?
Sounds good to me.
Wonderful. The reason that I want to do this is because when there was a call for the board of directors, nobody wanted to be on it. Several of the people here are on it only because they chose to sacrifice their time to be here, and I would like to find a pathway for the board of directors to be something that people want to be on. And I feel that if we create kind of like guidelines, what to expect, and create a public log of what we do that isn't the forums for CA AmpGuard, which I personally feel are kind of difficult to navigate. Love CA AmpGuard, I really do. But this is something I feel strongly about. That's
I agree,
basically
and I also feel like CA AmpGuard, I haven't looked at it too much since they updated it, but my problem with it before was it wasn't cell phone accessible, and I know there are a fair number of people like me who only do stuff with their cell phones, so that was probably.
I think the board of directors amped wiki page, which I would like to make, and I will not make until everybody signs off on it, including the monarch. I really think that can be a good place to make everything accessible. Hey, what is Westmarch? Is it a nonprofit? Yes, it's a 501c7. It's right here on the BoD page. Who are the members of the BoD? Who is the monarchy? We can much more easily update an AMP wiki page than CA AmpGuard, and I feel very strongly about that. All right, let's see. I'd like to skip the social media and online presence with permission because we're already at 2 hours. Is that okay?
I make motion to skip.
Second.
Thank you very much for that. Bear, since you are here, would you like to talk about sublands filling heir apparent position, something you requested to be added to the itinerary? It's up to you. This meeting is kind of running long. It's whatever you choose.
Copy that. I'll take the floor for just a little bit.
Do it. Go for it.
I have always been curious about how we are going to continue AmpGuard, particularly in a pipeline. And when I mean by pipeline, who are we feeding AmpGuard to? We have everyone of like adults, right? From various ages, from 18 to even elders. Who is carrying the torch in AmpGuard? We could help the pipeline I'm speaking of by getting the youth involved. And the heir apparent position is something that I've been watching closely and encourage that our land seek out someone who may be interested in becoming an heir apparent for children's games at the park. Please go through all the legal requirements as possible and make all the safety precautions necessarily needed to make that happen. What I've noticed that all lands have gone to, we can definitely get the youth involved, and we can ensure in the next figuratively 5, 10, 20 years, we now have the future adults that will be taking up positions for leadership, also BoD, and carry on the torch for AmpGuard. That's all I have any further to save us time. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Bear. I really appreciate that, and I agree with your assessment that we need to capture the youth, for lack of a better phrase. One of the best fighters in Southern California started off as a very young fighter, an individual who was below the age, but got monarchy approval. And I really think there's a lot of success stories out there that we should be reaching for. There are other groups, and I always say the SCA, and that I'm just one person, but the SCA has youth combat, youth tournaments that are run by volunteers, and those people who start off as youth end up becoming adult fighters. And I think we should find a pathway to do that as well. Is that going to be easy? Not at all, but it's something that's worth looking into. Proposal to move to V9 rules discussion. Let's do a quick temperature check. On here, we have V9 rules discussion, trademark the Westmarch logo, and then scheduling the April meeting. Probably another 15 to 20 minutes. Does anybody have to go? Do we want to adjourn this meeting? Do we have additional time? Where are we at?
I'm fine to stick around.
Love it. Okay.
I'm still available.
Motion to talk about V9 rules discussion.
Second.
Thank you very much for that. This was going to be a conversation that the Monarch should be here for, but I want to know, should the board of directors discuss V9 proposed rules changes in upcoming months? Should we, as the board of directors, using the liaison position, reach out to Westmarch Parks and ask for feedback on V9, and then submit that feedback to the Monarchy, the Circle of Monarchs, the Rules Committee, and the Kingdom Champion?
I think that is a monarchical role. I think that as a monarch champion rules situation.
Perfect.
Don't we have a V9 rules rep in Westmarch?
Yes.
Like, don't we have a representative that goes and is supposed to be going between? I think is it Rourke?
No, I think it is. I think the rules rep is Dagger. I could be wrong.
Is it Dagger?
Discord somewhere. I know it's in there.
Dagger, are you the rules rep for V9? Dagger's in the chat.
He says yep.
Yep.
He says yep. All right. So that's easy. We have Westmarch rules rep. That's Dagger. Dagger, if you can hear me, should the BoD be involved at all in getting feedback about V9, or do you have that covered?
Yeah. Okay, I can see your job.
I don't see that he's responding. He may not be able to hear us, and that's fine. I have it covered, though the populace is not very forthcoming. Perfect. Dagger, if for any reason you would like assistance from anybody, please feel free to reach out to us. We will be happy to discuss it at future events. Just send me a message if you want to get it added to the itinerary. So I'm going to put no on the V9's rules discussion with the BoD. Dagger says that he is working on it, but parks are not forthcoming. So if anybody listens to this recording, and you're hearing this, tell your your park representative to reach out to Frankie Demento and get feedback on V9. All right, motion to move forward to trademarking the Westmarch logo.
I move to the next topic.
Second.
Thank you very much. I love this Andy Rose motion second. You guys made this meeting fly along. I appreciate it. All right.
You may not hear it, but Sean is also yelling second after I do.
I assure you we are all hearing and loving Sean. All right. Get in, girls. We're going to go register our trademarks. The Westmarch logo may not be trademarked. I could not find anything about it, but that is pretty commonplace for Westmarch. Any verifiable documentation, I'm assuming, is in a trash can somewhere. I found that we could register the Westmarch logo for about $150 through the state. Is this something we need to do? Absolutely not. Is there value? Absolutely not. But Andy Brown could trademark the Westmarch logo and sue us for using it. I'm putting this on record only because it's something to discuss. Is this something that we should look into, or are we in a who cares mentality about this?
I mean, this certainly isn't the first time AmtGuard in general has had issues with regards to that kind of line of thought. So we might consider going that route.
I have a question. Is that for that price? Is that forever or is that per year? What does that price structure look like?
Really good question. How long is a trademark for? I do not have that answer. How long is a California trademark good for? 5 years. All right. So within 6 months of the what's that?
A couple $100 per 5 years, I think, is worth it. Because it's not just the danger of someone pulling a Jesus, which is what happened to the AmtGuard. It's also like, what if someone that is not us starts selling Westmarch t-shirts or something like that?
Why are you taking my idea?
Well, you'll have to pay me because I'm going to go register it as a trademark tomorrow.
I'm so excited about this. It's a race to trademark the Westmarch logo. It's like the Italian Job, but Westmarch. All right, so $150 every 5 years. So quick math, that's $30 a year to trademark the Westmarch logo and ensure that nobody tries to take it and sell t-shirts.
Quick, have 3 people pay dues.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing: is we let's acknowledge that we can always say, "Hey, it's only $200 for digital waivers. Hey, it's only $150 for a trademark logo." We are not here to spend the kingdom's money, not at all. These are good ideas that are being brought forward simply because they are good ideas, and if they choose to get implemented, it's just on our recommendation. Who would make this decision? Would this be a monarchy decision? I believe it probably is, but I also believe it also falls under the board of directors' purview.
I think this should probably be an all-thing item, honestly.
Love it.
It's one of those things where it's probably a monarchy decision, possibly an all thing, but it would still come through the BoD because contracts would be involved.
Sure, but that would be us taking action on what was decided.
I feel like it should be an all thing item because it is spending a significant amount of, not like significant amount, but spending money. And as we haven't done it before, it would be up to the citizens to decide if it was a forerunning thing.
I am very much against citizens making decisions.
That's the best advice for doing it that I've ever heard, Milan.
I'm teasing, of course. I think that's great. I think at future Westmarch BoD meetings, we will probably discuss adding things to future all things, including the Westmarch logo and potentially the digital waivers. All right, so motion to table this to next month, discussing how to make this an all thing.
I would recommend just bringing it up to the monarch as a thing that it is suggested.
The 2 ways to make something an all thing is either to get the monarch to put it on the ballot or to do a petition that gets 20% of the kingdom's approval.
I second Scoot's motion. Well, I can't second it. Never mind. Scoot brings forth the motion to bring it up to the monarch that it is suggested to be added to an all thing.
Second.
There we go. Thank you, Scoot, for Andy, for that. I appreciate it. That's information that I am just not wise to. All right.
Just make sure you do it before tomorrow.
Ha! All right. So, motion to move to open floor.
That's not what structural engineers recommend.
Got it.
Didn't.
Rose makes bad engineering joke. Walter Brown laughs somewhere. Okay. Open floor. This is where anybody can say anything at this point in time, and then we're going to schedule our April meeting. I wanted to say, get to your parks. Everybody talk to your parks and ask why, if they don't, why don't they have a link tree? Why don't they have a viewable QR code so people who are walking by can pull out their mobiles and snap the QR code and immediately get the Discord, the Facebook page, and the website. I had never thought about that. Maybe you all have thought about it before, but that's the one thing I wanted to bring up. If a park doesn't have a viewable QR code somewhere, I encourage you to bring it up and discuss whether or not it's a good idea.
My man at
We
arms
actually used to pass. Go ahead.
my man at arms already took care of that Frazier's Hall.
When Aureus Saltus was still alive, we actually used to pass out with our flyers. There were little cards that had the QR code on them. I think people like them quite a bit. I think some people or some parks might just not know how to do that.
Well,
not that it's particularly difficult anymore.
Yeah, I think disseminating that information, this is not a BOD job. This is not a BOD parameter. I'm very simply just bringing up the open floor. Get that word out to everybody, please. I think if somebody walks by and sees a QR code, maybe they're too shy to ask anybody, but they can beep a QR code. I think it's a good idea. Wells Fargo, why as a nonprofit are we working with Wells Fargo instead of California Credit Union?
We're not for profit.
Didn't hear you there, Rose.
Because we're a not for profit instead of a nonprofit, so we do a lot of things illogically.
This personal opinion, I'm not a huge fan of Wells Fargo. I'm not saying we should switch banks, but goodness gracious, I would look at joining a credit union if I was in finance with Westmarch.
We've had a lot of problems with Wells Fargo lately, so honestly, it wouldn't be a bad idea to look at switching. I think it took around 3 months last time to switch people on the bank accounts, which for anyone who's following along meant that it ended right when we had to then switch additional people. So that wasn't the best thing ever.
I hear Silicon Valley Bank is looking for investors.
Motion objection.
All right. The floor is open. Does anybody else have anything else they would like to discuss before we move to adjourning an April meeting? Scheduling an April meeting, sorry.
I think Scoot should look at credit unions that we'd be eligible to join.
Love it, Paul.
All right.
Huge. Just got to make sure that they're accessible all across all of California. I believe there are several.
I think everyone on the BOD should make sure to go on the org and recommend Bear for lots of awards, because we can see how many places he's visited and he doesn't have enough awards.
I agree with that. When Bear shows up, not only does he bring people with him, but he engages the locals. And when he leaves, those parks have a noticeable uptick in attendance. And that in itself probably should give him a Jovius or something.
I mean, I'm thinking 9th, 10th rows, honestly. It may not be a big event, but at least for the one that he had down at SG, it was Kingdom event level numbers, and it was completely financed by him, not financed by like Westmarch or a group of people who got together or anything. So I think that should be a really high level Rose Award.
And
So
it
you're
was
saying
so
it should be right on top of that, Rose?
Ha 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 ha.
it was so amazing of an event. It got us kicked out of our park.
It's accurate.
Thanks,
For the
Bear Bear.
record, Bear Bear did get, I believe, a ninth rose and a Jovius last mid range and some awards though. So they did come to me. Also, thank you for the kind words. You make your champion blush. Thank you, everyone.
Pretty hard to make a Samoan blush, not gonna lie. All right.
That's racist.
Let's schedule that April meeting, guys. We're a little over 2 hours, and I don't want to keep. I try not to keep everybody. I'd be here until 10 p.m. Pacific. I really would, but I don't want to do that to y'all.
All right. What day is good for people?
Champion is open.
I prefer Monday through Wednesday and then the weekend.
Okay.
Thursday and Friday second, I hate them. But if it's more convenient for other people, I will make it. They just suck. I hate them.
Evening weekdays are best for me. I can't predict whether I'll be available on weekends or not.
Well, did Tuesday? I know that some people are gone for weather, but is a Tuesday okay?
Everybody that was gone today was only gone because of inclement weather or self-care, and that was not due to scheduling conflicts.
I like Tuesdays.
So how about April 18th or April 25th?
All right. For April 18th, which is a Tuesday, is there anybody who cannot meet on a Tuesday that is here?
I can meet. Both those dates are good for me.
There's
Both
a lot
days.
of I apologize for interrupting. There's an exorbitant amount of ambient noise at the moment. I want to make sure everybody can hear each other. Is there a potential issue with April 18th for anybody at the moment? Y'all didn't have to mute. I'm sorry.
It's good for me.
All right, 18th, okay.
Champion's open.
All right, April 18th, Tuesday. Is 6 p.m. acceptable? Do we want to do earlier or later?
If earlier could be possible.
All right, 5 p.m.?
Is 5:30 possible? I get off work at 5 o'clock, so we usually have dinner pretty much afterwards. So it's usually not eaten until about 5:30 at least.
Okay.
All right. I can do 5:30.
Is there anybody on this call that cannot do Tuesday, 5:30 p.m., April 18th?
I think that's a no. Everyone's good.
All right. If there is nothing else to discuss, I'm going to put forth a motion to adjourn.
I second.
Third.
Thank you guys very much for being here. I will be reaching out to James and asking if we could potentially get color credit for this. If so, we will leave that in our Monarchs' hands. And everybody be safe and have a wonderful evening.
Good night.
Buenas noches.